Good morning. We'll start off with the disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial product. All content is for informational purposes only based on personal opinions and experiences. Trading futures, options, and other financial instruments involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for every investor. You can lose more than your initial investment, so always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial professional. Alright, let's get rid of this. So here's the news today. Basically, the main stuff is the 8:30 news, which is inflation, all inflation metrics. So we'll see how those play out. CPI, it is a consumer purchasing metric, which basically just means, well, they're not actually, it's not based off the money supply, it's based off what people are buying and what it's costing them. And so because of tariffs with that, it's definitely going to come in higher, for the month, for sure. Like, maybe it was last month that was the peak, but this month probably will be roughly the same, because of the tariffs. But it's not necessarily inflationary in the monetary policy perspective. It's inflation in, well, prices have just increased because of this reason and that reason. So I don't know. That's something I guess I'm interested in and want to look more into, because why? Like, I know the Fed's job is to maintain everything and not just the money supply, but how people feel, in the economy, I guess, too, right? Like, how much does their gas cost? How much does their, groceries cost? How much does a loaf of bread cost? I know they take those things into consideration as well, but it's not like inflationary, at least to me, seems like the wrong term, but that's a little tangent that I just went off on. But anyway, yeah, so that's the news today. We've got the inflation metrics all at 8:30, and that's pretty much it. We've got API at 4:30, but that's after the bell, so that'll be fine. So yeah, today we'll go on to the pre-market sheet, but looks like for now we're opening right in the, or we are currently right in the center of the distribution, sort of the split distribution we had yesterday. So still one time framing higher on the daily. That was preserved. Still nothing on the weekly in terms of one time framing. I said you're opening in a balanced condition because you're right in the heart, right in the mid of yesterday's profile. I said we've been aggressively moving higher because the past 2 days at least we've had gaps that have not been closed and have continued higher. So that's pretty aggressive. We've already talked about the swing low. I don't need to go over that again. It's the same. I said you do have a bit of an excess low, but I said both are weak because, like, look at the volume profile. Like, there's an excess on the TPO here, but because you had all the closing volume here, this is actually VPOC, right, down here in the excess. So pretty unfinished, pretty poor structure overall from yesterday at least. Yeah, both sides are weak. The high is clearly weak. Shifting up aggressively, I already said that. As for key levels, I've got yesterday's high. Above us, I've got yesterday's high, overnight high. And then there's some singles in here that we saw on the TPO right in here. They end right here, 75. And then on below us, I've got settle. I've got the yesterday's high, or prior day's high now, which would be the gap close. Overnight low, and this prior week's high, which we still haven't been able to touch. We got close yesterday, though. So yeah, those are the key levels. As you could see, there wasn't much on the high side. There's no value metrics from yesterday up there, even though arguably it should be the POC, but I guess not based off the calculation at least. So, but there's value up here, from this morning chop basically, and you can see from the volume. There is some interest up here, and so this area to be retested could be important. Basically just this area. But yeah, if we move to the TPO, okay, moving to the TPO. So yeah, like I said, you're opening in the mid of yesterday's profile, and so basically we could end up very balanced today because yesterday's profile is quite ugly in terms of structure. I wouldn't be surprised if we come up, we check the high, maybe we break yesterday's high, come back down, no continuation, pulls back to DGPs, falls through, comes back down, tries to get settle, maybe gets settle, and we have a neutral day maybe. Maybe not because the range is pretty big, but we could have a neutral day, especially on the RTH session. But really, a clear scenario we could have today is just sideways action. Like, this is right in the POC or in the VPOC of this consolidation we did a few weeks ago. And so it would not surprise me at all if we at least start the day balanced. Potentially, when we break out, there could be some continuation if that's what the market wants to do. But it wouldn't be my first scenario. And so basically continuation would be gauged based off of yesterday's high and low. If we break yesterday's high and we, get support at DGPs or get support at yesterday's high for continuation, then it goes and we've got all the naked stuff above us, and then vice versa below us. If we break yesterday's low and we break below settle, then all the way up to 6109 is the rest of the gap. So that would be the target on the low side. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, as for, I guess, a bit broader context, this was the last swing high up here. This was the last swing low down here. So until you break those, I'm really on a bit higher of a time frame. I'm more so leaning to you. Well, you're just balancing in this range. Or at least you haven't done anything in terms of price discovery until you've broken either the prior swing high or the prior swings low. And so we're coming up to the high side now. So if we can break yesterday's high, then I could see there be continuation more so on the high side. But like I said, it just may not be today. We could fall back, hold, pull back to DGPs and trade here, but, hold above settle to then propel in the overnight or just tomorrow's RTH session to continue higher. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We can go to the 30-minute because perfect. Oh no, never mind. Yeah, 30-minute. The only real thing I want to mention is VPOC basically is aligned with settle if it's down here, so it doesn't really mean anything because you just take it as sort of a cluster of levels. But if we do end up bringing VPOC up here into the 6250 area, we could potentially, if we are directional, see something like yesterday. Again, that sort of impulsive move higher, maybe breaks overnight high, pulls back, holds VPOC to continue higher, and just sort of continue on a steady grind higher through yesterday's RTH, likely filling in along the way, right? Like, just slow grind, sort of wide rotations, sort of choppy, like yesterday, pretty much just choppy directionalness, like you can see at least in the morning, we're moving lower, but the counter rotations are pretty big and, we're doing lots of volume, but we are still, consistently moving lower, just not super aggressively. Yeah, so that's how I'm seeing this currently today. Like I said, balance could be very likely today, so we want to watch out for that. We don't want to get sucked into anything. We've got yesterday's low, and then we've got prior highs, so that's the highest. And then above yesterday's high, we've got this prior week's high. I won't draw the swing high. We have the swing high just above, but I'm only going to draw up to here. So you've got boom, prior high, overnight high, settle. We've got settle here. We've got overnight high and potentially overnight VPOC if we trade here again. Above overnight high really is just the singles as well as yesterday's high. The singles end. Where do the singles end? 62.75. So all the way down here, right at overnight high basically. So I'll just put singles and overnight high. And then up here you've got the prior week's high from 2 weeks ago, I think. Prior week high, yesterday's high, overnight high plus singles, potential overnight VPOC, settle, overnight low, yes, prior day's high, slash gap close. Hey, hey, sorry. Yeah, so we'll start with the balance scenario actually, because basically this whole range could be balanced. Like, I don't necessarily, or I'll start with the directional and then I'll see where we can turn into balance pretty much. So on a bullish scenario, like I said, if you see something similar to yesterday where you get the nice push that breaks overnight high quick and then pulls back, and if VPOC is down here, you know, holds that. If not, you could just use overnight high. It's still basically the same trade. To then continue higher and basically just do a slow grind, higher, filling in, you know, fixing all the poor structure, closing the singles, doing all that stuff, but making its way up to yesterday's high. Yesterday's high, like I said, is going to be key. If we cannot maintain prices above yesterday's high, that would be the first point I would assume balance, where we could potentially just turn around. So I'll do it like this and balance out. Potentially going for yesterday's low, but overall just be balanced. Whoops. That's not pink. And then the red scenario, obviously, for continuation lower. Again, overnight high could be important as well from the vice versa perspective, where if you do fail, you could continue. It'll be a good sign for shorts. In the full bearish scenario, like I said, a good sign would be if you're unable to break overnight high or break above the open like yesterday. If we can continue lower, the first thing I'm going to be watching will be, the overnight VPOC and settle cluster currently, if VPOC is still down here. This would be a key support area and also a key area where we could also potentially turn into balance. Sort of same thing. If we can't really maintain prices below settle / yesterday's low, then I'd expect balance. If we can, like I'm drawing here, then like I said earlier, the gap close would be the final for me on a bearish day. So yeah, like I said, overnight / yesterday's high area, this could potentially turn into balance, as well as potential support. If we test this first, we could move up to yesterday's high if we test lower first. It'd be this whole cluster pretty much, which would be the main area. And then lastly, I will draw it very partially, which is just, or I'll do this. What I'm just going to do is box in yellow, yesterday's high, yesterday's low, and just say potential balance. Potential balance. Or I'll do potential balance range. potential balance range. Yeah, so this is the plan, pretty straightforward. Yesterday's high and low, the break of those and the reaction there will be key for me. There may be some trades along the way because we are right in the mid right now. So if you get a more scalp-like trade for the test of yesterday's high or yesterday's low, I take that as well. But those two tests, whichever one we get, or if we get both, will be the most telling for me to see, what we want to do, how good of a job we're doing, and, what potentially we want to do next after that. So, yeah, so I'll end it here. And this is the last look for the plan, and I will come back end of day if I have any trades. So, see you then.